Okay, all right. We've got the recordings on. Okay, all right, good. Welcome, elected members, officers and members of the public. I declare the meeting open at 4 p.m. I would also like to take the opportunity to welcome Susan Becker, but she's not here, no. I've been set up already. We'll leave that one. So much for run sheets. Could I ask those in the public gallery to now switch off their mobile telephones and electronic devices in accordance with the conditions of entry to the Council Chambers public gallery. In accordance with Regulation 14.1 of the Local Government Act, Administration Regulations 1996, and in line with Council's live streaming and recording of Council meetings policy, this meeting is being audio and video recorded and live streamed on the Shire's website. Under Clause 6.16 of the Shire's Meeting Procedures Local Law 2020, I do not give permission for any other person to record the proceedings of this meeting. By being present at this meeting, members of the public consent to the possibility that their image and voice may be live streamed to the public. Recordings are also made available on the Shire's website following the meeting. Please note that any items discussed behind closed doors will not be live streamed. However, once the meeting is open again to the public, live streaming will recommence. Unfortunately, we are experiencing some technical issues with our audio system and therefore we'll be using a handheld microphone this afternoon. Councillors, please raise your hand when you wish to speak and you'll be handed the microphone. And I'll just go back and I would also like to take the opportunity to welcome Susan Becker, our new Director of Development and Community, to her first council meeting here at the Shire of Broome. Welcome, Susan. Okay, attendance and apologies. Councillor Mahmood has an approved leave of absence. Item 3, declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations? Otherwise, there are none? No? Okay. And there's no declarations of impartiality? No. Okay, for public question time, there are guidelines that need to be adhered to in our council meetings. During public question time, people speaking are not to personalise any questions about elected members or staff or use any defamatory remarks. In accordance with Clause 6.17 of our Meeting Procedures Local Law 2020, a person addressing the Council shall extend due courtesy and respect to the Council and the processes under which it operates, and shall comply with any direction by myself as the presiding member. A person present at or observing a meeting shall not create a disturbance at the meeting by interrupting or interfering with the proceedings, whether by expressing approval or dissent, by conversing or by any other means. A minimum of 15 minutes will be allocated for public question time. Each member of the public is entitled to ask up to 2 questions before other members of the public will be invited to ask their questions. A reminder that public question time is an opportunity to ask questions and not to make statements. Can I remind the public that public questions are to be submitted no later than 12 noon on the day of the council meeting. If you have several questions you wish to submit, please provide these in advance of the deadline to give officers sufficient time to respond. Public questions at a special meeting of council must comply with Regulation 7, subsection 4B of the Local Government Administration Regulation, which specifies that the council is not required to respond to questions unrelated to the purpose of this meeting. Are there any questions from members of the public present? No questions? Okay. Public question time is now closed. Item 5, reports from officers. We go straight to item 5.4.1, notice of intention to impose 2025-2026 differential rates on page 7. So there's a report recommendation. Do we have any clarification or questions? Councillor Smith.
Thank you. The clarification I have is that I seem to recall that during, I guess, the presentations on the budget and the workshops and the deliberations we had, prior to this agenda being put together, targeted a average increase of 3.99%, whereas I see that we're now at 4.25%. I'm just wondering where that difference has arisen.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Taylor. We did have a third workshop around the rate increase following the receival of the revaluations for the GRV differential rating properties. The consensus at the closure of that meeting was that a move to around a 4.25% increase was preferred. And that consensus was amongst the elected members that were present at the time. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. No, I don't doubt you, but I don't recall that consensus being agreed. Thanks.
Thank you. I had some questions. I don't know, do you want me to list them all so we don't have to keep going back and forth with the microphone? We'll see how we go. So question number one, are the rates modelling increase on the GRV residential at an average of $2.52 per week? Is that inclusive of the 2025-26 reevaluation that the Valuer General did? Can you please explain the percentage in yield of 6.41% from the prior budget and how this differs to the average rate increase of 4.25%? Can you confirm from the workshop that I was unfortunately able to attend, there was discussion, I believe, around dropping the community survey from its biannual cycle? Is that still the case, noting that the proposed rate increase has gone up a little bit since that workshop? And if that is the case, what will the new cycle of the community survey be? And similar to Peter, if you could provide a little bit more explanation as to what, now that we've gone from what was workshopped at 3.98% to 4.25% average rate increase, what have we gained by changing to that increased percentage?
Thanks, Councillor Smith. I'll go through those in order. Hopefully I've captured your questions appropriately. GRV residential, the $2.52 per week increase is based on the revaluation figures. So that's post the revaluation model. The percentage yield, 6.41% prior budget, and the difference between the 4.25%. The 4.25% refers to the rate in the dollar. So we do have a rate in the dollar for all of our differential rating categories as per the item. The 4.25% relates to the individual increases of the rate in the dollar between those differential rating categories. The yield is the total valuation of all the properties within a category. So if we're talking GRV residential, all the 5,000 odd properties that are in that category, the total valuation times the rate in the dollar gives you a yield. So we take the yield across all the categories, and that relates that basically results in a total yield of your rates that are collected. So the percentage increase when referring to 4.25% is on the rate in the dollar and not on the yield. Does that answer your question? The third one, just around the confirmation, yes, the biennial survey has been omitted and deferred, and I believe the consensus at the second council workshop on the capital budget was around doing that every 4 years, so that it aligns with the full review of the council plan / what was previously referred to as the strategic community plan. It has not been included with the adjustment to 4.25%. you might recall that there was conversation on the Mail Oval Master Plan and the timing of that project, and that one has been included based on a 4.25% increase. Towards the end of the third workshop, there were lengthy discussions around the process of trying to get even to a 3.97%, which I believe is where council were targeting. That was very difficult. We were still sitting some $230,000 short of the yield required at 3.97%, and that was with a number of endorsed, or I guess in principle supported, council projects that were discussed in December when the council plan was endorsed by council. So the move to 4.25 was to try and address some of the increases, I guess, in costs operationally that we've experienced over the year, and to also try and ensure that we could deliver on some of those endorsed council plan projects that were contained in the council plan, and some of those being quite, I guess, important and priorities for our community, such as the library. The Mail Oval Master Plan is a prerequisite body of work required, as you would know, to get to the point of understanding opportunities for where the library may be located, and that's the timing in our council plan. So the 4.25% increase allowed us to include that project in the body of work for 25-26. Sorry, the last question, 4.25%, what has been achieved? I believe that was the question. 4.25% primarily, as I said, we were $232,000 behind, excluding the inclusion of the Mail Oval Master Plan. So essentially we've caught up in terms of getting everything on the table. That wasn't done easily. There were a number of adjustments to capital project funding strategies to allow us to get to that point. The 4.25% allows us to achieve that $232,000 deficit to hit the yield that we need to hit, plus an additional amount for the Mail Oval Master Plan.
Are there any further questions? Councillor Cooper.
Can I just clarify when the third workshop was? Because I seem to have missed it. I'm not sure why, and I'm not sure if we had a quorum. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
We received the revaluations for all GRV properties, which occurs every 3 years. We did foreshadow that in the second council workshop, the capital workshop, where we were basing discussions around the current rate model. We received those revaluations on the afternoon of the 8th of April, which was about a week and a half after that second council workshop. We pulled the workshop together, I believe it was on Thursday the 10th. The time I don't have in front of me, but we met on Thursday the 10th. I think it was 9 o'clock in the morning. So it was a very quick turnaround. Unfortunately, just due to the legislative requirements around setting rates, we do need to go out to the public for feedback. That's the intent of this meeting. Advise the community of the notice of intention to impose rates and seek submissions on that notice of intention. We can't do that prior to 1 May. However, we need to give a certain amount of time to the community to respond. So we needed to get that work done and basically get this item up prior to 1 May so we can advertise the notice of intention to impose rates, get that feedback, and then come back to council with responses to the community submissions in time to then receive ministerial sign-off on the rates and achieve the June ordinary council meeting deadline to get the actual budget endorsed. So at that time we did call around a number of times and email all elected members. Unfortunately the timing was out of our control, particularly with the school holidays and the Easter break. We just had no other opportunity to call apart from that week.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Smith, further question?
Just a question in terms of process and timing. So obviously the Finance Audit Review Committee has reviewed the third quarter financials and we're going to be considering that on Thursday. But there's some items in there that may or may not have implications for this in terms of where we could redistribute some of those operational savings. So I'm just wondering where it's most appropriate. For example, I might present propose that rather than offsetting the entirety of the Cable Beach or a proportion of the Cable Beach borrowings, that we could use some of that money to run the biannual community scorecard. So is it more appropriate to address that on Thursday night or now?
Thanks for the question. The purpose of tonight's meeting is the notice of intention to impose rates. The finance and costing review is a separate matter. It does have flow-on implications should the committee recommendation not be endorsed by council at Thursday's ordinary meeting. I don't have the figures in front of me, but off the top of my head, I believe it was around $60,000 impact in terms of, actually I think it might have been twice that, $120,000, and forgive me, I've been on a couple of weeks' leave, annually in terms of savings on the repayment of the loan, should the committee recommendation to reduce the borrowings by, I think it was about 400,000 K, not be supported. So there would be flow-on implications. In terms of the rate model, we would probably need to go away and just play with the rate model, or alternatively move ahead, noting that that could result in deficit budget position heading into next year. They'd probably be the only two options that I can think of at the moment.
Thank you. Look, through the chair, I think as the Director of Corporate Services has pointed out, tonight is about considering what council is comfortable in terms of what a potential rate increase is to put out to seek public feedback on that. There's still a couple of steps. Yes, there's the ordinary meeting of council on Thursday night where our audit committee recommendations are being tabled, and potentially there could be changes from that audit committee recommendation to council that could then impact the budget. But the budget will come back, and our intention is to, at 30th of June is our target typically, to have the budget formally adopted, and changes could happen at that point. So tonight is really about seeking council support with the proposed rate increase and where that sits. So the budget, my point being, the budget could change at a later point in time, depending on what happens on Thursday night with that audit committee recommendation.
Thanks. Any further questions, clarifications? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, through the chair, just to clarify, the Director of Infrastructure just brought the item up. The proposed recommendation would use organisational savings of 416,000 K approximately to reduce the borrowings down for the Cable Beach Stage 1 loan from 126,000 to 73,000. So it's around under 60K turnaround annually that we would need to have a look at in terms of the flow-on implications to the 25-26 budget. As the CEO's mentioned, there is an opportunity to look at that when the submissions come back in from the community as well, given that it's a fairly insignificant proportion of the overall budget.
Thanks, James. Any further questions, clarifications? If not, do I have council direction? Councillor Mail moving the report recommendation. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Smith. Okay. Any dissent? If there's no dissent, I declare that motion carried. Thank you. So that finishes the meeting. So item 7, meeting closed. Thank you for attending. Finished at 4:20 p.m.